gledalci, dobroveče. Imamo veliko zadovoljstvo da imamo jednog specijalnog gosta u našoj emisiji večeras. Nekoga koji je obeležio igranje u najkvalitetnoj fudbalskoj ligi sveta, Premier ligi. Da odmah pređemo na stvar. Mark Bosnić, naš gost večeras. Mark, dobroveče.
Dobroveče, Igor.
We won't tempt you by talking in our language. We'll do this in English. Sometimes, if you want to say something, of course, you can do it. Let's begin. How are you? You're in Australia now. How is the situation? It was a strange year for all of the world.
Yeah, very much. First and foremost, it's so good to see you and to hear your voice.
Thank you.
Yes, here in Sydney, Australia, the COVID situation, they've handled it very well, to be fair to them. We've just gone now, I think, 14 days without 0 cases, and that's all around Australia. And slowly but surely, as the vaccinations start to roll out now, probably at the end of this month, they can hopefully start to open things up much better. But they've done a very good job. They closed the borders very early, and anytime there was an outbreak, they closed off that area. But here in New South Wales, where Sydney is especially, they try to keep as much things as normal as they possibly could. But so far, so good. And hopefully after the vaccinations, then by the end of the year, everything will be back to normal.
Okay, that's good news. So Australia was probably one of the best countries in coping with this terrible situation. But let's talk about football. That's why we're talking.
Yes.
Beginning of your career, I'm interested how you decided. Did you always want to be a goalkeeper, or you played football with other kids or some other sports? How did this come up?
Yeah, look, over here in Australia, nogomet is not the number one sport over here. So growing up here, you had the cricket, you had Australian rules football, as they call it, you had rugby. So I used to play all sports, all the sports. But my dad says that I wasn't good enough to play outfield, so eventually I went back into goals. But I think using my hands come a lot more natural because of all the other sports that we played over here, like I just mentioned. So, and then around about when I was 12, so 12 godine, I started to really train really hard and really serious with a really good goalkeeping coach here, and then I sort of made my mind up that I wanted to go to England as soon as I possibly could. So then. In 1988, it seems like yesterday, but it's not. I went to England and first to Manchester United.
Yeah, it's interesting. It's not easy for someone from Australia to go to England to another level of playing football. Definitely.
Yeah.
So you were very young, 16 years, I think, when you went to. Of all the clubs, you went to Manchester United, probably one of the best clubs in the world. But it's funny, you in Australia, you went to a school that was called Liverpool Boys School. So
Liverpool,
how did you go to Manchester United?
Well, it's a funny story because the year before, 1987, we went on a family holiday to what was then Yugoslavia. My father, as you know, he's from Blato in Korčula on the island. And at the end of that trip, I actually went to Liverpool for 3 days and had a really good 3 days, really, really good 3 days. But then come back to Australia, and I was going to sign with Liverpool. But then Sir Alex Ferguson rang up probably in March 1988, so a couple of months later, and said, would you come and trial with us? And then I finished trialing then, and he basically turned around and said, he locked the door and said, you're not going anywhere. You're going to sign for us. You're not signing for Liverpool. So the big problem was getting the work permit, as it is still now for a lot of people. Mm-hmm. But he was confident that they could get it. And I think mum and dad felt really comfortable when he spoke to them and said that he would be, he's, like you said, very young continue his schooling, then everything would be okay. So it was Manchester United.
Where did he see you? Where did he see you?
I went to trial over there. He got me to come over in then March 8, 1988. He got me to come over for 2 weeks, and then he said, right, we want you to come back in July at the beginning of preseason 1988, like I just said, and to stay with us, not to go to Liverpool. So, like I said, I said, okay, we go to Manchester United.
Right. So then, because of the problems with a permit, you had to come back to Australia, and then you didn't return to Manchester United, but to
Aston Villa. Yes, I had three years from 16. So from Chesnais got in there to Devitt Nyes got in there 3 years at Manchester United. In the end, they couldn't get the work permit. I played 3 times with the first team. I made my debut at 18. So
Amazing.
that was a really great experience. Couldn't get the work permit. Had to come back to Australia for 6 месяцев for 6 months, and but in that time I got married to an English girl, so there was no problem with the work permit. And I went to Aston Villa when Ron Atkinson, who used to be, before Ferguson, he was manager of Manchester United, and he had seen me play, and now he was the coach, the head coach of Aston Villa. So then at the beginning, 1992, back to England, to Birmingham, to Aston Villa. From the hot weather here in I think it was January time, to freezing cold back again in England.
Okay, well, we can say that these were maybe your best years in the career, the years you spent in Aston Villa.
Yeah, you could say that. There's no doubt about that. We had a fantastic time. It was very fortunate, very lucky to win 2 trophies. The first one was in 1994 against Manchester United. We won the League Cup at Wembley. And the second one, as you know, because you were there as well with Savo, 1996 League Cup again, this time against Leeds at Wembley, 3-0, much more convincing that second time. But it was a great period for Aston Villa. Thankfully right now at this moment in time, they're back in the Premier League and they're doing very well. They're a very big club, as you know.
Yes.
And they deserve to be back in the Premier League and challenging to get into Europe or maybe to get a cup or something like this. Birmingham's a really good place, and it was a fantastic time.
Yes, actually, I'll talk about that time now because it's amazing. Maybe it's not even good to say that 25 years passed since we met each other, and now we're communicating again. It's really fantastic. I'll tell you a story. I don't know if you remember. So Salo was joining Aston Villa. We came to the hotel. We didn't know any of you guys, and I remember someone knocking on my door. It was you. And I remember your words still today. Listen, guys, you're from my parts of the world, so jump in the car. Do you need a credit card? Do you need something in the grocery, whatever?
Yes.
How did you get the idea of coming immediately and trying to help us?
Oh, well, exactly like you said. I number one, I know, coming to a new country is always very hard. So there's that. And then number two, like you said, because we're from the same part of the world, I felt even more so to try to make you feel as welcome as possible. So I remember coming around to that hotel. I remember us going in the car. I think it was really sunny. We put the top down as well, and to try to help. I remember Savo as well, and you coming to the training ground originally when you signed. He signed from Partizan Belgrade, I remember. And we were doing some running. And I remember, because as you can hear now, I'm not great with our language, but I do my best. But I remember doing some running and I swore, and I remember you two laughing very, very hard. And then I come around and then I come around to the hotel and took you for a drive to try to show you as much as possible and to see if I could help in any type of way. And I always think, you know what it says, blessed is the helper,
Of course.
It come back to you tenfold as well. But that was my main thing, just to say, especially the fact, like I said, you're from our part of the world, and I really just wanted to help as much as I could.
Yes. Well, these were difficult times in the region, a very specific situation, war going on. But I think that you and Savo, I mean, I'm emphasizing you two as individuals, show that people are just people. I mean, if you're normal, you're normal with everyone. Because I remember, coming to Aston Villa, we knew there was some Mark Bosnić, a Croat from Australia, Savo, a Serb from Bosnia. Okay, I'm from Belgrade, I'm moderate. but at the end, you became great friends from the beginning, actually, and had really confidence in you. And we want to thank you once more for these days.
Oh, well, no, thank you as well. And you're right, it's a very obviously difficult time during the 90s for our part of the world, everywhere. And I think it was important, because of that too, to make sure that we gave our best sort of thing to each other, rather than the worst. We've seen enough of the worst over the previous 4 or 5 years. So I think that was important. And I always remember as well, because part of the deal for Savo to come to Aston Villa was to play 2 games with Partizan. Mm-hmm. We played one, if you remember, at the beginning of the season, the week before the beginning of the season at Villa Park in Birmingham. And the second one was to play, I think it was around November, in Belgrade. Yes. So, when I come to Belgrade, remember, we done the video and everything, and everyone was lovely to me. Really, really nice. We didn't end up playing because of the snow.
Yeah, the snow. I remember the game was postponed.
And I remember that bar. I can't remember the name of the bar, but I remember the bar you took us on the river there with all the music, and that was excellent. Yeah, but we had a great time. We had a really good time.
Yes, I had a good time also in Birmingham, thanks to you and the other players. It was a great group of players, and the manager was exceptional, Mr. Brian Little.
He was. It was an excellent, and the funny thing is, Igor, and we'll get onto this. Obviously, we'll talk about more. So then I went to Manchester United in 1999, and it's funny because right now is the World Club Championship. So we played what was then called the Intercontinental, but it's the World Club Championship, what it is now. And we played against, for Manchester United, we played against Palmeiras of Brazil in Tokyo. And we won that game. So, we, managed to become world champions. And later on that night, and Yorkie was there, Dwight York, and we were sitting in a room all together with the players. And it was Ryan Giggs, who we were just talking in general, who came out and said, why didn't you ever win the title at Aston Villa, especially with that team you had in 95, 96? And me and Dwight York we were stunned. We were like, didn't really know what to say.
Yeah, you had Savo, Paul McGrath was playing.
Man United boys, the Man United boys said that they thought that we had enough talent to have won that to have won the Premier League during that time. It really surprised us.
Yes, because I remember the first game in the championship. You played against Man United. That was first Savo's game also. Yeah, I was on the bench. I didn't play, but you scared them. You won 3-1.
3-1. And Savo scored on his debut. Remember?
And it was funny. I remember he got because he still didn't know the rules, there, and the Premier League was still like in the old fashion, with fair play. So I remember the penalty on him. Then at the end of the first half, he also fell in the box, wanting another one, and stayed lying on the ground. I mean, he didn't get up. So Brian Little thought he was injured, and he substituted him because he was afraid that he was injured. And I remember Savo telling me in Serbia, "Šta radi ovaj ludak? What is he doing, man?" And I said, "Just lay down. Don't embarrass me, okay?" So it was a funny story. I remember that game, and I also remember that Beckham, I think the Neville brothers, and maybe even Scholes made their debut against you. But
they did. If you remember, that was the famous game where the TV commentator Alan Hansen, who was a great player back in the day for Liverpool, he came on that night and said on television that you win nothing, dobi se ništa with kids. But at the end of that season, Manchester United ended up winning the double, the Premier League and the FA Cup. So it was you're 100% right. But like I said, it really surprised Dwight and me when we were at Manchester United when they said that. Yes,
and one more thing about that game. Savo told me he was part of a team of 11 observers of the European Championship. Gareth Southgate was also there, and Alex Ferguson was on the head of this group. So when Savo arrived, Gareth introduced him to Alex, saying, "Do you remember Savo?" And Alex, you know, in his fashion said, like, "Oh, of course I remember. I'm not gonna curse now. He destroyed us in the game where I put the kids playing against him." So the thing talking about Beckham and the others. So he has good memory. Okay,
very good memories.
I won't stick too much to this to our story in Aston Villa. Only one funny fact: you were always making a good atmosphere. I remember I had to. I'll put this jersey just to prove it. I had to have my jersey also. This is the Aston Villa jersey. You remember it?
Ah, that was the good one.
Yeah, and I had to put my name also there. That they officially. But once we played, you played one of the preparation games in some of the smaller English towns, and the whole town came there. And I remember, you know, they were taking autograms, everything. So. One of the kids asked you, who's this guy? Because I had the jersey of Aston Villa, and you made a problem for me because you said that's Pixie. so all the kids started jumping Pixie, and I had to sign like Pixie. I mean, so I won't forget this.
Very good, very good.
Yeah. Okay,
very good. I remember that now. Yes.
You as you said, let's stick to the career a little bit. You won the League Cup also with Aston Villa, had some good time, and then as let's say as a cream on the cake comes the transfer to Man United again for the second time.
After all the second time after all those years, and it was great to go back. It really was great to go back. I could have went other places, could have went to Italy and that, but I really thought that I had the unfinished business back there, and it was great. So they just come off the back of winning the treble. You know, they beat Bayern Munich in the Champions League final, if you remember, and they won the league on the last day and the FA Cup. But it was great to go back, and you know, we that year we won the Premier League by as many points as any team up until Manchester City beat it. I think it was 2 seasons ago. We won the Premier League by 18 points, only lost 3 games. And like I said before, become the first British team ever to win the World Club Championship, which was a great honour, really great honour.
Yeah, so you won the championship and you won the Intercontinental Cup. That's amazing achievement for you also as an individual.
Yeah, it was great. It was really great. It was a great team. There's no doubt about that. I mentioned obviously Dwight York, you know, Roy Keane, David Beckham, Paul Scholes, you know, Ryan Giggs, Jaap Stam, Dennis Irwin. Really was the Neville brothers, a fantastic team. Nicky Butt, and very lucky to have been part of that during that time.
Yes, okay. You had success with the results, but let's talk also about your relationship with Alex Ferguson. We know all this, his quote in this book that he said that you were a terrible professional, but I think you answered not just politely, also cynically, very fantastic, saying that maybe that's true, but he called me not once, but twice to come to Man United. Maybe you make a mistake once, but you don't do it 2 times. And that it's an honor for you that he invited you to come to the team 2 times. It was very polite, gentlemanly answer, but also you hit the point, I think.
Yeah, well, look, listen, he wanted to sell his book, so he's going to put things in the book. But as another thing I said to him, if I was so terrible, I don't think we would have won 2 trophies.
Okay.
But look, listen, he wasn't happy the first time when I went back to Aston Villa and not Manchester United, which is understandable, I guess, in a way. But the bottom line is I was there for 3 years. They promised a work permit. They couldn't get it. These things happen. Plus, he had Peter Schmeichel. I would never have played anyway. And the second time, unfortunately, when things as they do, you know, in the dressing room, they start to go a bit wrong, and then a lot of people bring up the past. And I was a lot more stubborn, as you know, during those times, and probably had a shorter temper as well. So then sometimes you say things in the heat of the moment that later on you maybe regret. But you know, my dad used to always tell me, rule number one, the boss is always right. And rule number two is if the boss is wrong, you look at rule number one. So maybe I should have followed a little bit more advice from Dad. But I was very stubborn and very headstrong. But like I said, the most important thing for me is that I went back because I thought as though there was unfinished business. Then that unfinished business was to play and to win the title. And we did. So
okay, you can of course say in your biography that you won the title.
That's and then the World Club Championship. You mentioned Pixie before. The World Club Championship growing up here in Australia, along with the Champions League, which was then called the European Cup, but the Intercontinental Trophy, now it's called the World Club Championship. That was very big here, because it was played in Japan. It was always on a Sunday, like around about a Sunday lunchtime. So it was good viewing for people over here. And I always remember the great sides, I remember, Juventus winning it. I remember Red Star Belgrade winning it, in the early 90s. Also remember the great teams like Liverpool getting beaten, very heavily. And like I said before, with no British team had ever won that game. So that was coming from a country like Australia, I understood that in my life that most probably was not going to win the World Cup. So to become the world champion with a club side was the next best thing.
Yeah, great. It was definitely. Okay, well, we spoke about this. We spoke about Alex Ferguson. What are your impressions of him? Okay, you don't need to write the book so that we can get to know what you think about him, but he's an amazing figure of football.
Yeah, he is, and he'll go down as one of the greatest managers of all time, and so he should. The success that he had at Manchester United over such a long period was a great success. There's no doubt about that. His force of will, his determination to succeed is second to none. The ability to spot great players was also excellent. And when you look at, like I said, when you go through the list of great managers during our time, he'll be right up there. He'll be right up there with any manager from history. If you talk about the Trappattonis, modern day ones, your Pep Guardiolas, Jose Mourinho, Carlo Ancelotti, all that. When you talk about all those people, Sir Alex Ferguson will always have to be in that conversation. And, a lot of people, I think, forget too that previous to Manchester United, Aberdeen, he went to a club that was not very famous club and played in a league in Scotland where Celtic and Rangers were winning everything. And he broke up that duopoly, if you want to call it, got some great success with Aberdeen as well. So it wasn't as if he just sort of got to a big club and who had the most money and he sort of did what everybody expected. He'd done it before as well. It took him time. He went there, I think it was 86. I think he first went there around that time. Didn't win the title until 93. But they stuck by him, and then the rest is history. And like I said, very rare, I think, that you'll see in these days a manager be there at a big club for so long, and to be at a big club where, if you lose 2 on the trot, it's a disaster. For so long and be so successful, he'll deservedly be mentioned always in the all-time great managers list.
Okay, you also played with some of the most known players even today in the world, like David Beckham, Jaap Stam, you mentioned, Ryan Giggs, and others. How do you see them as teammates in the dressing room? Or off the field? Super. I was very lucky, Igor, that wherever I played, we talked about Savile before, Dwight York, I know who's gone over there. Sasha Churchich came over as well. Remember that was a special experience.
Well. Yeah. Okay, he was a little bit different, but still, they're all, I was very lucky to play throughout my career at Manchester United, Aston Villa, and then even Chelsea, with good people, very, very good people. And that's what I'll say about the people you just mentioned, David Beckham, Ryan Giggs, Paul Scholes, very, very good people. Roy Keane. I can't remember. I I look back on my career because I miss every day playing football, and I miss all those people because they're good people. There's not one that I think to myself, I didn't like coming in because of him. Or they're all good, very, very good people. Worked very hard. Everyone worked very, very hard. And we're sort of tough people, but fair. Put it that way. That's the best way to put it.
Yeah, great. Let's continue with your career after Manchester. You're joining Chelsea. Didn't play so much there, but a specific time of your career.
Yeah, I got into trouble at Chelsea. For those who don't know, I actually, once I got fit and started going, it was going really well. Got injured again, and then run into some trouble because I had a lot of time in my hands. I was injured, and I tried to help somebody who, in the end, it was too late by then. But anyway, I found out that basically that person was sort of sent into me to do harm to me. So it was difficult at the time. But I guess during those times, you find out more about yourself than when things are going well. Sometimes in life, things like this happen. And I think the most important thing is how you react. Now, as you know, coming from our part of the world, it's very easy for us, to fight back because it's in our nature. So that's the easy part. But sometimes the not so easy part is knowing when to do it and who to do it against. So it was a difficult time, but I got, in the end, I got myself out of it. Again, very, very lucky. I got myself out of it. You think about regrets. Yeah, maybe that you've seen things earlier, but I wear my heart on my sleeve, and like there's no, me, I'm pretty upfront. So it's difficult sometimes when people are sort of, how can you say, putting the smokes and mirrors in front of you all the time. And like I said, difficult time, but got out of it in the end. And then sort of I stopped playing because of that, because then they found cocaine in my system, and that was late 2002. And after that, I was like, because of everything that was going on, unfortunately, I didn't play again. But I stayed in London till about 2008. And then somebody came to London from Australia, said, would you fancy coming back to Australia for a little bit? I said, okay, fair enough. I said, are you sure? I said, because it sounds as though things are going really good in Australia. Sure you want me to come down? So I got more luggage than the Queen, And they said, no, come down. So I came down to Australia. Played six games for one of the local teams here, Central Coast. I played quite well, considering I hadn't played for 6 years. And then I was going to go back to America to do a TV show, but the company here who was showing the football in England and locally, they still show the football locally, but not in England anymore. Fox Sports said, would you work on the Premier League? So I said, okay. So then I've been here ever since, 12 years. It's been a long work.
Okay, I'm not going to jump too much on this theme. We'll talk about football more.
Yeah, I don't mind. Plus, I know you. Yeah.
You were a big champion, had great results, a big star of the Premier League. But you were very honest in admitting that you entered into a problem, the cocaine problem, and it's not easy, as you said, to come back, but you did it, and it's also a good message to the people that when everything is perfect, it's not always perfect. When you're at the bottom, it's not the bottom. You can always change things.
Very, very, very good point, Igor. Like I said, I learned a lot, but I was lucky. See, sometimes I think to myself, I can understand more now with people maybe who get in a bad position but didn't have. I was very lucky to have played football for a long time and was okay from the financial perspective. Then I think to myself, but what about if you weren't? How would you have been then? And you sort of think to yourself, then you understand how people get themselves into trouble. But I also learned, like you just said, that regardless of what type of trouble that you're in, if you're really determined in your mind, you can turn things around. I think that's an important thing, because I think people sometimes think to themselves, I can never turn this around. I'm just going to stay where I am, and they do. But You know, sometimes, like I said, when there's trouble, if you just keep going, and it's like being in the storm. You know, if you keep going, the storm will eventually pass. It might take time, but eventually the storm will go away, and the sun will reappear.
Yes, talking about your mental strength, that was also shown on the penalties. You were a specialist for that. Was there?
Yeah, mental strength and luck.
Okay. Well, once I played 5-5 with you, and I scored 3, and you took 2 from me, but I won. Okay, but
that's more than a lot of people did.
I know. Well, there were games where you had 3 penalties stopped. It was amazing.
Yeah.
Did you have some tactic, or it was?
I did. Yeah, I did. You're right. It was like, I always thought that for penalties, for a goalman, for a goalkeeper was very important. Very, very important. So I used to practice a lot. You remember when Savo was there, I used to have Savo and Yorkie stay back and practice a lot. And I always thought to myself, 3 things. Number one, the way they approach the ball. Doesn't matter left or right foot. Mm-hmm. But the way that they approach the ball, is it from an angle, or do they, slightly circle their run a little bit? That had a lot to do where the ball was going to go. The second thing was the non-kicking foot. So not the foot that was going to kick it, but the non-kicking foot. If it was close to the ball, normally it would be pointing in the way where they were going to hit the ball. If it was far away from the ball, normally it would go again where that foot was pointing, but normally they'd go, say if you're coming like this, it would curl around like that depending on the run-up. And the last thing was to hold yourself to the last split second. But that was the hardest thing, to hold yourself for that last split second, because the natural thing for a goalkeeper is to go a bit early. But if you go too early and the penalty taker sees you, then you've got a big problem. But at the end of all that, if they hit it right up the top corner or right on the bottom, it's hard to save. And also if they miskick it, sometimes down the middle, sometimes that can be the worst thing for you. But those are my 3 things that were really important. And like I said, I always thought for a goalkeeper,
But you had to think fast. These 3 things, you had to think in milliseconds.
Yes. Yeah. But if I practice so much, that you talked about that day, so I'd be doing, 10 to 20 every day, except for maybe the day before the game, I wouldn't. But the other days, 10 to 20 each day, just like taking the crosses, eventually it slows down, like with the camera, when you put your finger on the camera and it slows. So if you do something over and over again, you know yourself. Yeah. You know yourself from tennis, yourself from your career, your media career, and what you do. You do things over and over again, you become better.
Sure. And tell me then, which were the strikers that maybe caused you most problems? Who did you? Yeah,
there was a couple.
If there was anyone you were scared of.
Yes, there was a couple that stood out. Gabrielle Battistuta. I played against him twice for Manchester United in the Champions League for Fiorentina. The first game in Florence, he scored a couple of goals, but they were from mistakes from our players, nothing. But then the second game, he hit one. And I don't like to get beat from a long way out. I think that's a real, that's a real insight. It did. And it went everywhere. Yeah. So I have to say him. And Robbie Fowler for a while was very difficult. I had to watch Robbie Fowler on the video analysis way back to see he struck the ball in a very different way that you used to think it was going to go one way and start to go the other way. So those 2 really, really stand out as ones that you think to yourself gave you a few problems.
Yeah, and let's talk about the goalkeepers, your colleagues. Which are the ones you appreciated the most?
First and foremost, Peter Schmeichel, obviously at Manchester United. He was one goalkeeper of our generation that us younger ones used to always look up to. He won the European Championship pretty much on his own in 1992. He was phenomenal for Manchester United, so that was one we really, really looked up to. Modern day ones, obviously there's Manuel Neuer, but for me, Gianluigi Buffon, he was absolutely fantastic. And from olden days, there's always ones like Peter Shilton, Pat Jennings, even Neville Southall, Gordon Banks, Lev Yashin, and also somebody from our part of the world, Vladimir Bayara. And people might say, "Oh, wow!" So when I went to 1987, before I went to Liverpool, back to Korčula with the family, Dad and my late uncle Barbadonko had arranged for Vladimir Bayara. He used to take his holidays all the time on Korčula to come down and train me for about 3 or 4 weeks. And obviously that was really important for me. And I really had a fantastic time.
You met Bayara.
Yes, he trained me for about 3 or 4 weeks minimum. He was training me nearly every day. So that was a real honor. And obviously then, you look up and, some of his achievements and what he achieved. And I spoke about Lev Yashin. A lot of these were, pre sort of TV, but you try to find out as much information as you possibly could. So that was, if I missed out any goalkeepers, I'm sorry.
Well, mentioning Bayara, it's a nice introduction into talking about the football in, as you say, our parts of the world. Bayara was a member of Hajduk and then later Red Star.
That's right.
I suppose you're a Hajduk fan.
Yes. Yeah, you got it. You know that. Yes. Yeah, you got it. Yeah.
Okay. Well, what else? If your origins are from Korčula, there can't be too much space left for any other options. If you want to visit Korčula, if not, then you have to skip it. Do you follow what's going on in Croatian Serbian League and other?
Yeah, of course. Obviously, of course, and. Being in Russia in 2018, I was so proud of Croatia, how they played to get to the final. It was absolutely fantastic. And, watched the leagues very, very closely. I know in Serbia, they've had a few changes to how the league is, was for a few years, they used to have, some teams play off and this, that, and the other. They seem to have settled down on a format now. I know, obviously, Red Star and Partizan, since they've made it Super League, have won the most titles, but Red Star are reigning champions, and I think they're top of the table right now.
Yes.
Very similar to Croatia with Dinamo Zagreb, who have been, since there's been a Croatian league, have been pretty much all conquering. There's been a few times when it hasn't, but there's been very, very rarely. So I follow them two leagues the most, not so much for Bosnia or Slovenia or anything like that, but obviously those two leagues, and like I said, and if the national teams as well, always look out for them to see how they're going. And 2018 was a great time, for Croatia. They had a fantastic team. There's no doubt about that. Some wonderful players that are going to be very difficult to replace, when they eventually retire. And obviously the Euros are going to come up, hopefully, God forbid, with the COVID-19 situation. And I obviously I know as well Serbia are looking to appoint a new coach because obviously I still try to keep in contact with Savo, and I know he's in the mix. I also know Pixi Dragan Stojkovic is in the mix as well, and he used to coach Guangzhou RNF in China, and his team used to come down here to Australia for their pre-season around about January, because in January here is the summer. And a mutual friend took me down to meet him. There's a very, very good conversation I had with him about football, about everything. Really learned a lot from that conversation. So always keep an eye out.
You met Pixi also, Dragan Stojkovic.
Yeah, it was a really. I spent about 2 or 3 hours with him, by the beach in the place called Brighton on the Sands, which is about 15 minutes from. I'm here in central Sydney. It's about 15 minutes away. He came down for, I would say, about 6 or 7 seasons on the trot for pre-season. So to talk to him about football, about coaching. About Arsene Wenger, about some of the great teams in history. It was a real education.
Great. Well, there's a lot of discussion here, and I'm interested in your point of view on why the Croatian national team is so successful. Once they were third in France, in Russia they were second. Amazing results, and then Serbia has also all these players. all around the world, from Nemanja Matic in Man United to not to mention all the other players. Well, Nemanja is not playing anymore for the national team, but there are always players, and there's always a big discussion here. What's wrong with the Serbian national team, and why is the Croatian team so good?
Well, in terms of why the Croatian team has been so good, you could say since independence, the fantastic players. There's not, it's not a sort of a big thing in terms of the fact that they've produced fantastic players. You look at the 1998 side. I mean, Zvonimir Boban, Davor Suker, Robert Prosinecki. The list goes on, and same with the last one we spoke about. Modric, Rakitic, Brozovic, Mandzukic. Some absolutely fantastic players who all came together at a very, very important time and were knitted very well together by the manager. In terms of Serbia, they're producing some fantastic players as well. There's no doubt about that. I know they haven't qualified for a Euro for a while, but I actually think that's more because I think they use the Euro as more of a, we're going to blood new players and younger players, yeah? In terms of going further in major tournaments, like I said, I think maybe it's come down to the fact that,
yes, you have this Serbian generation that won the World Cup in New Zealand for the
well, and younger. That's always a very. I was about to get onto that, and that's always a very good sign for the future. You have a look at the World Cup winners over the last 40 years. Somebody brought this statistic to me the other day and showed me the winners of the World Cups over the last 30, 40 years. And if you look at those young players and what they did at the under-19s, or it's under 20s and under 17s, there was a lot of similarity. Like a lot of those kids who did well during that time then ended up doing well for the national team. But I think and this is why I think the next choice for the manager of Serbia is so important. The most important thing is to get somebody who all the players are going to respect and all the players are going to buy into, and they're going to do exactly what that manager wants. If they can do that, then you can do anything. I mean, if you look, so Zlatko Dalic, not a world-renowned manager, at the time when he was given the Croatian job, but he managed to get all those players on board. They all respected him. They all bought into what he wanted to do. And you saw in those, they played extra time, 3 games on the trot, and you don't play extra time 3 games on the trot and win, they won on penalties 2 on the trot without the character and the spirit of everybody being together. And when you've got all that talent, it's kind of like, there's those teams that you say they're very hard to play against because they've got so much character and spirit, but they're maybe not got as much talent. But if you've got the talent, you have to have that character and spirit. And sometimes that's much harder to get than something that you've had since birth, So I think that's going to be important. Hence why it's a very important decision, I think, for the Serbian FA, where they go next. But regardless of where they go to, and I know Savo, I don't know Pixie as well, but I spent that, like I said, a wonderful 3 hours with him. I can tell what a good man he is and what experience he has as a manager. So whoever they decide to go for, the players really have got to buy into and to trust and respect that manager and listen. And if they listen, they'll be very surprised what they really can achieve.
Thanks, Mark, for these quotes about the 2 national teams. You remember the old Yugoslav football league, maybe among the best in Europe, with just mentioning the Velika Četvorka and also other teams, clubs. But we see that we're struggling with the quality in the domestic championships. What do you think about this idea that will maybe never be fulfilled of making this competition alive once more, the regional tournament? Not talking about renewing Yugoslavia, but talking about the quality, competition and...
Yeah, I understand totally. I understand where you're coming from, and I've had a lot of people say this before as well. I thought long and hard about that. 2 things. Number one, I still think it's very fresh in people's minds what happened during the 90s. So it's only been, it's like 25 years. So I think from that perspective that, if anything was maybe if they had a cup competition or something like that, I think for the beginning, I think maybe having traveling fans would be better not to have traveling fans. That's what I think. Yeah. In terms of the league, I think you'll have problems having a league from UEFA, which is understandable. We've had problems here in Australia because we have a team from New Zealand. So, AFC, which is the Asian Football Confederation, don't like the fact that Australia's got a team from New Zealand. So, and I remember I think it was about 6 or 7 years ago, Igor, I think it was Scotland, maybe Scotland, Norway, Holland were thinking about, definitely Scotland it was, but they were thinking about having the three of them as the three of them were thinking about having a competition. So I don't think a league will be allowed anyway from UEFA. But I think, if a cup competition came up, I don't see the harm in having a cup competition. If you had a cup competition from that area, again, I think, like I said, from the fans' perspective, I would go very, very slowly. Because like I said to you, I think still things are very, very fresh for a lot of people. But it's something that needs to be looked at. And really you have to get the most important people for me in football are the players, because I was an ex-player, but the real most important people are the fans. And I think, with these days with computers and phones, it's quite easy to take a survey to see what the fans would think about that. Because you don't know, the fans might turn around and say, no way. Or they might go, yes, okay, we're fine with it. So that's a good
proposal. That's a good proposal.
Yeah, that's what I think. You just have one of those things on your mobile. Like now, if we go for a COVID test, they can text you back within 24 hours saying, yeah. So they say, okay, here's a survey to all the fans. Do you think a cup, Adriatic Cup competition with teams from all over the region, do you think that would be something that you would like to see or you would like to participate in? But like I said, for me, from a security perspective, I would probably say to away fans for the time being, we've got used to it now with COVID anyway. Away fans, I think for the time being, we're probably best to let it go. But eventually, with that, everyone, you have to eventually slowly but surely move on. But at the start, I think just start slowly, see how it goes. But definitely not, I wouldn't say a league, because I said I don't think you'll be allowed anyway. But I don't see a problem why you can't explore maybe having an Adriatic Cup.
Yeah, and you're always in the mix of something. How did you react when Australia and Croatia played in one of the previous World Cups? Who were you going for?
I couldn't lose.
That's a good answer.
I couldn't lose. It didn't matter. Yeah, it didn't matter, yeah? Half the Australian team were Croatian anyway.
Okay. The Sport Club TV, which transmits this show, is also the exclusive broadcaster of the English Premier League. So what do you think about the league today? I mean, these are special circumstances with COVID, but generally,
we're going to look back. We're going to look back on this, Igor, when we're old and say, "Wow, we went through a pandemic. The last pandemic was in 1918, 100 years ago." So, I think it's been very good. I feel sorry, obviously, with the situation that's going on. A lot of teams couldn't do a proper pre-season. Some teams then were playing game after game after game, and it's been difficult. But I think because of that, it's made it sort of a lot more unpredictable, which has made it even more, you could say, exciting for everyone, because normally this time of the year, we're sort of looking at, maybe two teams and saying, oh, look, that's pretty much down to them two or whatever, even though it must be said, Manchester City, the last 8 or 9 games, so I'd say, last month and a half have been fantastic, super. And they look really, really good at this moment in time. But I just think because of COVID, because of what's happened, it's been one of the most open leagues, whether it be for the title, for top 4, for relegation, that we've had in a very, very long time. Like I said to you before, very impressive Aston Villa. I think they've done a really good job. Ole Gunnar Solskjaer's got Manchester United going. To see them at the top of the league a couple of weeks ago was fantastic. And I think that's another good thing for saying to stick by, and to believe in someone and give it an opportunity. I was disappointed. Another ex-teammate of mine, Frank Lampard, I was disappointed. Wasn't so shocked, but disappointed that he got sacked. Obviously, Chelsea have done this for a long time, and you can't say anything against it really, because they've won more trophies since 2003 when Abramovich took over than any other English club. They've won more trophies. So that's the way that they do things. But from my perspective, from, personal perspective, I just thought he just deserved a little bit more time, because it was only December 5th when they were top of the table, But since Tuchel has come in, obviously they're undefeated. They've won 2 and drawn 1, so it's a good start from him. To see Leicester up there has been good. Ancelotti's doing a great job at Everton. So it's like I said to you, for me, it's been very interesting. And for the title, yes, right this moment in time, Manchester City look favourites. But when the Champions League starts, De Bruyne's out. He's their best player. They haven't missed him so far, but long term, they will miss him. Liverpool will be back in the Champions League. Chelsea will be back in the Champions League. Manchester United will only be playing Europa League. They can afford to play the second team. Obviously they're still in the FA Cup, but that can always change on one game. I wouldn't rule out Manchester United at all at this moment in time. I know Liverpool have had some bad results recently, but I wouldn't rule them out completely. And obviously Manchester City are favourites. And watch out for Leicester as well. I know they've still got Europa, but they've still got some players there who participated in the greatest title upset in history, yes. 3 or 4 years ago in 2015-16 under Ranieri. So they've still got Jamie Vardy, Peter Schmeichel's son, Kasper, and a good team around them. So I'd be very careful of them as well. So it's looking very, very exciting for coming up, going into the business end of the season.
Playing so many years in the Premier League and living in England, I suppose there is still a lot of contacts with some players. Who do you talk to mostly?
I can't tell you, or else they won't talk to me. Well, everyone. With Instagram, with Twitter, I still keep in contact every now and then with Gareth Southgate. I was with John Aloisi, who's an Australian player who played with Savo in Spain. And we texted Savo about a month and a half ago, just before Christmas, yeah? I'll text the ones every now and then if I, to say hello or to like their things that they put on Instagram and all that. But all of them, really. If I stayed here, I would be here for another 2 hours telling you all the ones that I keep in contact with.
Well, there was an interesting communication with Gareth Southgate at the World Cup before or after the game with Croatia. You also had mixed feelings there, but you wrote.
I did. I congratulated him to say what a fantastic job he'd done, because a lot of people were doubting and all that. And I knew, Savo knew what not only a good man, but a football person he was. He was an excellent player and a very, very smart football mind. But I told him, I said to him before, I said, I will be supporting Croatia, but again, I can't lose. I said, if you win, I'm happy for you anyway. But I congratulated him on what happened. And he sent me a lovely text. I'll see if I can find it for you. A lovely, lovely, lovely text back. He was, forever the gentleman. There's no doubt about that. But, that first half in that semi-final against Croatia, in Moscow, England were the better team and really could have, if they'd scored a second goal, maybe things wouldn't have turned around. But in the end, they turned around. They really could have went either way. But it was another game, like I said before, where no matter who I supported, I couldn't lose. Hang on.
Yeah,
where was it?
We'll wait for you to find the message. Actually, you were the first person from Aston Villa me and Savo got to know, and Garrett was the second because he was our roommate in the hotel where we stayed. So he's really a great person. We'll try to get him to this show one day.
Yeah, thank you so much. This is the message. This was 2018. See, 13th of July. My eyes are not as good as they used to be, but I can still see 13th of July.
Well,
thank you so much. Yeah, thank you so much, mate. Your message means a lot to me. Progress for sure, plenty to get better at. Also, we made a difference to people's lives that will live with him forever. I loved our time playing together, special teams, special friendships. Really, really lovely. Yeah.
Great. And a special moment.
If I keep reading too much, I'm going to start to cry.
Okay, don't get too emotional. Okay, you're practically our colleague today. We can talk about some transfer to Sport Club in these days. We'll get an offer to you.
Yes, why not? Why not? Well, when this is all over, I'll come and visit you.
Yeah, definitely. We'll really like to see you. There's also an interesting tournament that Sport Club is doing every summer with the best regional teams under 18 from all over ex-Yugoslavia. So maybe that's the time that you come as a guest and visit us.
Yeah. We might do a poll first about that cup, and if they're all against it, I might wait 1 year to come.
Okay, this is happening with the kids already, so don't worry about it. No incidents. Everything was correct. Mark, thank you very much for the time you gave
Absolutely.
us, and it was so
Pleasure.
nice seeing you and hearing you after such a long time. I'm glad that you look good. You look healthy. That's important.
Thank
and
you.
I hope it will stay like that in the future, and we'll have some more contact.
Just like Gareth said, it was a very special time, and yours and Savo's friendship was important to me then, just as it is now. And it was great to hear from you and great to be on the show. And I wish you and your family and everyone who's listening all the very, very best. And when this is all over, like I said, I'll come over and see you.
Okay, are there maybe, I spared you from the effort of talking in Croatian or Serbo-Croatian, whatever. Is there something that you could say at least for the end of the show? So I don't have too much to translate.
No, all to say, hvala puno, drago mi da si priča za tebi. Uvijek ja ću sjećat tebi I Savo. Imam special a friendship, special prijatno prije I sad, I kad su COVID-19 završili, ja ću dolazi tamo. Hvala puno. Drago mi da si priča.
Thank you very much for this.
How's that? Better? I think better than before.
It's better than before, and our next interview will be then in like this, okay? And then we'll use English.
I told my dad I was going to do the interview in our language, and my dad said, "Please, I'm begging you, please don't."
Okay, before we get off the air, we have here a routine of giving books that Vulcan. Izdavačka kuća Vulcan is giving to our viewers, and it will be the same like this time. Znači, 3 knjige vam poklanja Izdavačka kuća Vulcan. Idete na naš nalog, Instagram nalog @Sportlight Show i moćete dobijeti ove knjige. Okay, Mark, thanks once more. Hopes that I'll see you soon. Dear viewers, dragi gledalci, bio je ovo specijalno za vas u Sportlightu Mark Bosnić.